There's a very famous painting that shows what appears to be men in crafts flying through the sky in the background of an ancient painting. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I actually have a page. One of the first pages I ever put on my website is like a bunch of these, because throughout history there are these indications of ships, of craft.
But you know what the one I'm talking about? It's like, and
yes.
that's the shape of it. It's also like a plate turned on its side, and then there's a person inside of it.
Yeah, man. It's
and
exciting.
It's flying through in that same. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, look
it's
how
incredible.
it's flying.
But, the thing is that everybody can say art. The one above that's pretty cool because that was a hidden thing. I've studied that one where it says Discovery 15th century. Above her left shoulder, there is an object, and if you really zoom in, look at the dude staring up at it. As a painter, my wife is a painter, everything is intentional.
Which guy? Where's the guy? The guy on the
right over there. It's pretty cool.
Looking up.
So I think that's 15th century, it said. So the problem with this, Joe, is
go to the original one, the one that we just looked at, Jamie, the one right before that. Yeah. See, get a big picture of that.
Yeah.
That is so strange. Like here
man.
you got Christ being crucified, and then above him, UFOs. Like, is that supposed to be aliens, or is that supposed to be angels? Like, what is that supposed to be in these things that they have? It's real similar to what we're talking about here.
That's the argument of Miracle of Fatima, let's say. I mean, again, this is so speculative. We have a witness here of, Pilate, but when you see something like the Miracle of Fatima, if you look at that...
What is the Miracle of Fatima?
God, that's that one that was, considered a real miracle by the church, and the 3 kids were getting messages, I'll get this all wrong, but for like months that they're going to be visited and to bring people, and bigger groups gathered to where there was over 100,000 people.
What year is this?
1917.
So, dozens of thousands, if not hundreds, but dozens for sure, see an event. A mass sighting of something that happened. We're talking people that were religious, people that weren't religious, doctors at the time.
That's not a real image, is it, Jamie?
That one was doctored a little bit, so you could see they're all looking at something.
But that's not real.
Yeah,
but that's the crowd, right? The crowd is real. Is that right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. People come out, something happened that was so intense. Some people thought it was religious, that it was a visitation, but other people saw it as technological, like something descended. Look into it. I'm just saying, art, pictures, like paintings we're talking about, man, you can interpret them all day. I can't hold on to that. I can hold on to an eyewitness with other eyewitnesses, with radar systems, and with video. We're in a different era now. We don't have to paint it, man. We get to see it. It's fascinating, man. It
is fascinating, but it's way more fascinating when someone like you talks about it versus some fucking random kook. That's what makes me incredibly interested, is just your credibility and the fact that this is not, you don't have a history of seeing wacky shit that other people don't see.
No, just this once.
But it's on video, and that there's other ones as well. It's really strange. And I've seen people try to explain it away, and what I don't like about when they explain it away or attempt to explain it away is that they're trying really hard. They're not going, who knows what this fucking thing is? They're not looking at it like cleanly. They're looking at it like a quote-unquote skeptic. I don't like the idea of being a skeptic. Not that I don't think you should be skeptical of certain things. I certainly think you should be. But there's a lot of people that brand themselves as skeptics. And I think it's a lazy way to look at things. I really do. Because I think you're just looking for the holes in things without looking at it objectively. If you wanted to be a scientist, if you wanted to be someone who is a fan of science, then you have to look at it as a thing. Like, look at this information and let's study this without any bias, any preconceived notions. I don't think they're doing that. They're looking at it and they're trying to find a way where they can justify that it's fake. And they're just doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to make it fake. That video that you show where that thing slips off to the left and takes off at incredible rates of speed, that alone should freak people the fuck out.
Yeah, well, I think because people confuse all the time, like we took the video. No, it was another crew that took the video. We watched it for 5 minutes with our eyeballs, and there was 4 of us. And we all have the same story. We all saw the same stuff. We all came back and looked at each other and scratched our head and said, WTF, serious? What was that?
But yeah, if you suddenly we find that Fravors right, or that there's there's this contact, oh, well, suddenly guess what we that's it. That's the top concern at that point.
That's number one.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the hope is always that if we're about to nuke ourselves into another dimension, that the aliens will come down and go, hey, dummies.
just like a 1950s movie.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you fucking idiots. Stop doing that.
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah,
Wasn't that one
remember
of them?
that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Klaatu Barada Niktu.
Wow.
Remember that?
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Day the Earth Stood Still is a great fucking movie.
It was a great movie.
It's weird. It's like a time capsule, right? Because what they thought it would look like, and the robot. That's just
No, it is. It's I love the movie. I tried to get my boys to sit and watch it not too long ago, and they were like, "Really, Dad? This is what you spend your time watching?" And,
you know what was interesting? I was like a normal thing that the family took the alien in their house.
Yeah.
Come on in, stay with us, strange person from another land.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? He's talking to the kid. Like you're not even a little suspicious. You don't think this guy might be a creep?
What's your favorite movie of sort of alien space genre movie?
Well, I like the best one is Alien, the Sigourney Weaver movie. I think
The first one.
Yeah, that's most likely what alien life is going to be like. Some horrific parasitic fucking creature that eats everything it finds.
Yeah.
That to me seems likely.
Yeah.
That seems more likely.
I remember sitting in the theater when that movie came out, watching it, and when it popped out of that guy's chest, he was, I mean, the entire theater jumped.
Yeah.
Right? It was just crazy. But
People, it's hard because you watch that movie today and you're watching it having seen all the other movies that it's affected and all the other science fiction genre movies and special effects movies, but that movie was special.
Yeah.
In 1979, when that movie came out, that was a special movie. That was a fucking horrifically scary movie, and it was realistic. Like there was no cut the shit scenes. Everything seemed legitimate. The creature was completely unique.
Weaver was hot.
Hot as fuck.
Yeah.
Woo.
I mean, honestly, we're looking at pictures of Liz Hurley. We should be looking at Sigourney Weaver.
And that's a great movie where a woman is the hero, and you're not flinching. You're not. There's no part where you're going, "What? What is she doing? She's kicking everybody's ass. Get the fuck out of here." That's a movie where like that's a real hero.
Yeah.
That's a real hero who rises to the occasion in this horrific situation where this ship has been overtaken by an alien. I think that there's things out there. I don't know if I believe. I want to believe that we've been visited, but I don't know if I believe.
I think there's things out there. Yeah, I'm on board with what the second part of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it hard to believe it would be such a secret, but and also knowing the U.S. government. Look, I mean, it's harder to find out from the network when they're going to start this show than it is getting secrets out of Washington, D.C., right? So I'm thinking, we would have known for now if it had happened, but I do believe there's other shit out there, right? I can't believe we're it.
No, I don't think we're it. But
maybe we're being hopeful. I can't believe we're it. I mean, but
But I'm also fascinated to think that if they did know that that something was here, that they would visit it occasionally. Drop in on it occasionally for a scientific expedition, just see what the fuck we're up to.
Yeah, unless they just got so disgusted the last time they just thought, that's it, I'm done.
I don't think so. We don't get disgusted. We don't get disgusted when we go visit baboons. When we study baboons, scientists return. Robert Sapolsky, he spent many years going back and forth to Africa studying baboons. And baboons are boring as fuck compared to people. if you weren't a person, if you were from some enlightened race, a million years advanced from us, you would be so fascinated to come by and look at people.
Yeah, although they probably look at us like we're a bunch of shit-flinging monkeys, so I think you're probably right. Yeah.
I mean, if we had a time machine, tell me it wouldn't be amazing if there was a time machine, but it could only go back 500,000 years ago to the beginning of man. Like the early, whatever ancient hominid that was alive back then. God damn, that would be fascinating. To be a fly on the wall and watch these primitive humanoids try to figure out fire and try to figure out hunting and become what we are today.
Yeah. Oh, there would probably be moments, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sit and watch the whole thing because I think that would be boring as shit. I mean, come on, just get on with it. Chip that rock into a circle, do something with it. Come on, but I think that You're right. I mean, if there's higher life forms out there, and you'd have to assume they are higher life forms if they're traveling, these distances. And we, again, looking at the issues of propulsion systems for hypersonic flight, et cetera. Would they look at this bunch of folks down here and think, just not interested? I don't know.
I think at a certain point in time, it would be unnecessary to physically visit. I feel like maybe
they're watching us through the Samsung TVs.
Yeah.
See, it all comes. That's the thing about it. It all comes back around full circle.
Yes. I got super high once. I think it was in the tank. And when I came out, I had this idea that alien life, if it wanted to communicate with us, would come up with a way, a type of language that everyone could understand. Like a language that got right into your brain. A language that instead of you having to interpret what the sounds mean and turn them into words, it's some new kind of technology that allow, like as they're making this sound, as they're putting out this signal, it's going straight into you, and you automatically understand it.
Yeah.
Without knowing what they're saying, without having actual. Bob said you guys should come to the spaceship instead of seeing. What it means. Without hearing sound, like you'll have to disassociate the idea of these sounds meaning these words. You'll just know what it means.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie
Arrival.
was crazy.
Well, didn't they do it like visually?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was like time doesn't matter.
Right.
There's no sentence. It was all memes and like.
Right.
That
And it was like they would spray black ink into the sky, right? What did they
Right.
do for Let me see what it looked like again. Yeah, there it goes. They spray black ink and it makes like weird patterns, and that's how they would communicate.
Have you
But
seen
that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you seen the trailer for Tenet? Is that what it's called? It
I've been
looks so
excited
crazy.
for the movie to come out for a while.
Yes.
So mad the lockdown fucked it up.
I think there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, and he's this brilliant guy who wants to live to be 1,000 years old, and he's got this series of patents that he's come up with. I mean, he's really like a legitimately genius guy, and I got a chance to interview him once a way back. But one of the things that we talked about was he was talking about downloading consciousness into a computer. And they think that there's going to come a point in time where you will be eternal because you're going to figure out a way to take whoever Alan Mikovsky is and put it in a computer and download it. And your material body, your physical body, your biological body won't mean anything anymore. You're going to exist as you inside this computer, inside this thing. I've always thought that that's probably what alien life is. What alien life is something that has gotten to the point where it doesn't need a physical form anymore. Like whatever consciousness is, they figured out a way to contain it in non-biological systems. So they take whatever you are when you're born, but then the thing is like, how does that thing replicate? What are they doing to make it? What are they doing? What are they doing to make sure the power stays on? Like, what are they doing? I think
Keto.
probably squats. I think life could be all kinds of shapes. I think life could be like there was some speculations these scientists were trying to figure out whether or not light could be a life form. Like there could be forms of life that are made entirely of light.
Well, everything's energy, right?
I don't know if everything's energy.
I don't know. I thought
I've
I'd
seen a
throw
lot of
that out
people
and
that
it
are
would
like-
make sense.
Just really lazy.
But like we're made of energy, you know?
Yeah, we're made of energy. But what we think of as life, we think of as like a frog.
Yeah.
Or like an Alan Mikovsky
Something
or a
with
Jamie
a
Vernon.
pulse.
Yeah, but it's possible that life might be like I've thought about ideas. Like when you have an idea and then that idea gets in your head, like, man, I don't like that idea. And then you start working to fulfill that idea. You build a thing. Like maybe you have an idea like how to build a thing. And then you build a thing. Like that's a thing that like forced you to make it. It's like you had an idea that jumped into your brain. And then it's like, listen, bitch, you need to make a canoe, like a canoe.
Yeah.
How would I make a canoe? You take a log, you
Yeah.
fucking hollow out the side, and you roll around inside of it. Just go down the river. And then all of a sudden, this idea that pops into your head, and you start doing all the work. Now you have a physical thing that literally allowed itself to be born by getting this idea that invades your consciousness and tricks you into making things.
Doesn't that make you think that everything's already kind of decided? Like, you know, you have free will and control, but to some extent, everything's kind of already, what's going to happen is going to happen.
That's not necessarily true. I think you do have free will, but I think you also have determinism. I think this is something that people have argued successfully, where you really have to take a step back and go, okay, what do I think about a person's who a person is right now. Like if I meet a person and I meet this woman and she's all fucked up and she lies a lot and she likes to do drugs and she doesn't know what she's doing with her life and she cries. Like, oh, get your shit together, bitch. Is that what you think? Like, what do you think when you meet a person like that? Do you take into consideration, like, oh, this is a person who is the granddaughter of alcoholics, and it all boiled down to genetics and terrible. So all of her systems that came online when she was 2 and 5 and 6, they all came online during alcoholic households. And people were physically abusive, and you're hiding in the corner of your bedroom, and it was all chaos and
How do you know my life
drinking
story?
when you're 12. Like, when you get to that 35-year-old person and they've gone through this insane pattern without any intervention, nothing switches, how much of their life are they really responsible for?
Yeah.
It's a real question. It's like, who are you? You are the combination of all the things that have ever happened to you, your genetics, all the weird shit that you inherit from your parents. Like you inherit a lot of ideas, they think, even from your parents. Not just like learn from them, but actually inherit these ideas. And then you do the best with what you got.
Yeah.
And some people's got is fucking terrible.
Yeah. Do you think we're living in a simulation?
I'm too dumb
Same.
to take that into consideration, but I think it seems legitimately weird. It seems like it changes too much. Like reality itself changes too much.
Yeah.
And things come up that seem like if there was going to be a simulation, this is how it would go down. Like I remember when I first started reading about simulation theory, was right around the time where Anthony Weiner got busted for sending pictures of his dick. I'm like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Like that seems like
It's so on the nose.
seems like something you would
So
really.
on the wiener.
If your name was Weiner, you'd avoid showing people your hog.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
You'd
a terrible.
castrate yourself. No more wiener.
But if we're going to come up with one someday, obviously not you and me, but someone really smart is going to come up with a simulation, it's going to eventually get good enough where you can't tell that you're in a simulation.
That's what's fucked up.
That's what's fucked up. What's fucked up is if it isn't here, it's coming.
Yeah.
This took me a long time. Like I had a conversation with this guy, Nick Bolstrom, who's a brilliant guy who is a big proponent of this concept. And he was explaining it through like probability theory. And I was a little too dumb to understand what he was saying, but basically what
That's
he's
how
saying
I feel
is
listening to your podcast.
if it's possible that someday someone, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, someday we'll have a simulation. Like what are the odds that this is a simulation? It's more likely that this is a simulation than not.
Yeah. You just got to pray that whoever's doing the simulation is looking out for you.
The other possibility is that we know the simulation's coming. That's the other possibility, and that's why everybody's freaked out. Everybody's freaked out because even though it's not here, it's inevitable. If you follow the pattern of innovation, if you go from pioneers to people who live in cities to cell phones and internet and fucking Space Force, and you just keep going, eventually you get to a point where someone figures out how to make an artificial version of life, whether it's Ray Kurzweil's thing, where it downloads you into a computer, or whether it's a thing you sit and connect to.
Yeah.
Someone's going to come up with something.
Do you think we know that we're in the simulation when it happens,
Then it
or it
would
would
suck.
just like ease
Then it would
into
suck.
it?
You don't want that.
Yeah, no.
You want something where it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't even know you're in it. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, am I in the simulation?
Who knows?
That's the best simulation. The best simulation is you have no idea.
Oh,
You're-
yeah.
You're locked completely into it. So that's where our problem lies. We don't know if that's actually going on right now. Like for Trump, if somebody brought Trump aside, like sat Trump aside and said, Mr. Trump, all of this seems highly unlikely, doesn't it? Well, here's why.
Yeah.
You are in a simulation. This simulation was started 78 years ago, and this is the pattern. It plays out. You're given a large amount of money to start your own businesses.
Yeah.
You're going to put your name on everything. You're going to be the best, the best,
Yeah.
the best, but you have crazy hair.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You just fucking spray it down. You're good. You have a few flaws in your life. People are mad at you, though, but you're going to be the best. You're going to have the best things, the biggest. You're going to have the business. Everything's going to be amazing. And then you come up to them and like you wake them up and you say, listen, this seems crazy. It seems crazy because it is. And you settled upon a very bizarre pattern in your simulation, and this is how it came out. And everyone else is mad at you, but they
Yeah.
just don't understand. This wasn't your fault. you didn't mean to. But then you think of all the things that we counted before, like poverty, abuse, drug addict parents, all the different things that make a person who they are, right? Those are really kind of like factors in if you had a game. Like if you were playing some sort of a large-scale role-playing game, you're like, what is my character going to be like? Oh, your character's a barbarian. You're in the Matrix. That's what you're showing me.
Yeah, it's like you're describing like when Morpheus talks to Neo. He's like, "Hey, what do you think?"
But it is
The red pill or the blue pill?
yeah, it is like that,
Yeah.
and it is essentially what it will be. If we're staying in this human form, essentially someone's going to figure out a way to put a helmet on you,
Yeah.
or put a fucking spike in the back of your head that like locks your central nervous system into this gigantic computer that starts sending signals to your brain and tricks your brain into thinking it's riding on a horse through the fucking the Saudi Arabian desert. That's gonna come.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not it's here yet. It's gonna come. They're gonna keep making things. If we don't blow each other up, there's gonna be a cell phone that lets you see God. You're gonna like call God. And
Yeah.
God's gonna be in front of you, hugging you, giving you love.
Isn't that what psychedelics are kind of like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that could be what we're trying to recreate. What we're trying to get to could be like a state that's similar to what exists already in nature. Like maybe they're interconnected in some sort of a way. Like maybe someone will figure out, maybe someone who is anti-drug will figure out a way to recreate psychedelic experiences using only technology that interfaces with your brain and turns on those. Are you still interested in aliens? Is that
Yeah,
still,
man.
Still?
So that's the thing. When I first came on your show,
Yeah.
you cut me really off guard because
Bring up aliens?
most people that we talk about aliens, they completely think you're crazy or you disregard.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're gonna talk about like, you know, they most people that I attract with they so you feel like ridiculous.
Right.
Then after I found out you read a lot about that stuff, like the Sumerian text,
Yeah.
the creation tablet, Zachariasation and all that stuff. And I do too. I mean, I don't know if there is alien, like I think there would be life form. I don't know if it's intelligence. We don't have evidence for it.
Right.
And I think our ego as human being want us to believe that the alien came and interact with us.
Yes.
That's our ego. But if they're that far in advance from us and they come from a different world, maybe they don't want to interact because we have nothing to offer them. They're not going to kidnap a farmer and ask him what kind of suspension he's wearing. You know what I mean? Like they think, you know what I mean? It's
But think about what you just said about paleontology. I mean, we're paying attention to stupid fucking lizards that lived 65 million years ago.
it's true.
I mean, don't you think they would be curious? This weird monkey with nuclear weapons?
Yeah, but we don't communicate with it. We don't interact.
Right.
We observe. There's ways that it can learn
Right.
from us without communicate. I don't
Without
know. I mean,
communicating. Yeah.
I think it's our ego that make us. We want to feel special. We want to feel that like, oh, we're different. You know, like
Right.
we're different beings than, for example, a dog. Or we can think because we're smart, but. Like, I don't know how this have been giving to us. Like, I don't know, you know, like, and you were talking about it, like, when I was young, I used to have, like, we talked about it last time. You said, oh, you were talking about, like, the experience. I said, I remember that I remembered, but I can't recall it. When I was young, I don't know if it's dream. I remember I used to draw figure of monster. I say my mom is like, it's the monster. They come get me at night. That's why that's what we talked last time.
Right.
But I was very uncomfortable, and I didn't want to talk about it because I was like, man, how the hell he knows it? You know everything, man. This guy he knows everything. He made research and stuff. So I made the drawing, and then my mom, even now today, I said, hey, I want to see the drawing, you know, like, I showed the drawing, and I'm like, and then after I remember later, I remember that I remember, but I couldn't remember. You understand what I mean? I remembered that I remember that something that happened, but now I can't remember what exactly happened.
Right.
Could be a nightmare, could be another sleep paralysis, or
Paralysis, yeah.
my imagination. I don't have evidence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what we talked about it last time, and that's what happened to me, and I hope it's nightmare. It's nightmare, you know what I mean? But the thing is, later on, I saw some documentary on TV. I saw some people that had a similar experiences me, loss of memory and things like this when they were young. And they claim they get a hypnose and stuff. Then they go back in time and they explain they get abducted by alien. And then I start to freak out about it because I said, man, is that what happened to me? But there is a lot more logical explanation. You know what I mean? But that's why when you brought that back, I freaked out. I was like, how the hell he knows this? Like, how the hell he knows this? Like, I didn't want to talk about it, but then it was also my agent was there. He's like, hey, we need in 10 minutes. I'm like, we were misinformed. We didn't know that podcast was like that long and this. All these things in my head, like, beep, 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 and I didn't know what to make of it, you know? So that's what it was.
Yeah. It's entirely possible that we're experiencing something when we're dreaming, that when we're sleeping, when we're unconscious, that maybe there's dimensions that consciousness travels to that are non-physical. That like this dimension, what we're in right now, we could touch this table, move this microphone around.
Yeah.
These are physical dimensions. But it's entirely possible that whatever your spirit is, or your consciousness, or your mind, when you're thinking of your thoughts and your soul, that you
said you're a soul.
Yeah, whatever that means.
You believe is a soul. You believe.
I don't know what that means, though.
Okay, okay.
It's a weird word, right?
Okay.
It has religious connotations, but
I agree.
But the idea of whatever your essence is as a human being, there's something inside of all of us that makes us conscious and aware and there, and then that something is not there when you're sleeping. And so is it dormant? Is it just recovering, which is, the scientific version of it? Or is it possible that while you're in this dream state and your body shuts off, that your mind and your consciousness travels to a non-physical dimension that you can only access through the chemicals that are released in your brain, which we know produce psychedelic experiences. So if you took the chemicals that are released during your brain or inside your brain, like dimethyltryptamine, and there's all sorts of different psychedelic chemicals that are produced by the mind. If you take these outside of the dream state, if you take these drugs, you have these crazy, fantastic experiences. And we know these are produced by the brain.
They produce. They produce by the brain also.
Yes, they're produced by the brain. They're produced by the liver and the lungs.
Yeah.
We believe they're produced by your third eye, which is your pineal gland. They've shown, the Cottonwood Research Foundation has shown that this is done in rats, that rats produce dimethyltryptamine in their pineal gland. Doesn't necessarily mean that people do, but it's logical to imply that people probably, or conclude that people probably do it as well. So those chemicals that are producing these psychedelic experiences are being released by the brain, but we don't know why, and we don't know what they're doing.
When you sleep, like you have a guy, Matthew Walker.
Yes, it was amazing, right?
When you sleep, your guardian, your logic is not there. That part of your brain is gone.
Right. Yeah.
So that's probably the most logical experience. But it's kind of a freaking scary thought of thinking that, man, is like it make you wonder. Sometimes you're at night alone and you're thinking, man. And me, I'm a guy that think a lot. I'm thinking about all kind of scenario. Like in a fight, I think about all scenario, but in life, I'm the same way. Yeah. I'm thinking, what if this happened for real, or what if, like, man, it's a scary talk, man. It's nothing more scary in the world.
How long were you there?
I'd say about 6 months or so.
And what progress was made while you were there?
Well, we came up with a bunch of reasonably good ideas about how the reactor worked. And one of them was the square base of it was essentially like a cyclotron, which is a small particle accelerator, a circular one. Particle accelerators, linear particle accelerators, are just a, long tube essentially, and they accelerate particles with high voltage and radio frequencies till they reach high speeds. But a cyclotron does that in a small circular area. And there's this very heavy element fuel, element 115, something that wasn't on our periodic charts at the time.
But it is now.
It is now, yeah.
When did it become on the periodic table now, the way the charts now?
I don't remember. Do you remember when they...
2004, Darmstadt, Germany, I think, is where they first fabricated 4 atoms. They lasted 220 milliseconds with the atoms. It's nothing, right? And then it later was discovered a couple more times they could fabricate it. then they gave it a place then on the periodic chart. After that, called it Moscovium.
So they told you about this stuff in 1982?
Yeah, well,
No,
we
not
kind of.
1982.
What year was this?
It was 88 and 89 when
you
I
were
was
there.
there.
Oh, okay.
82 is when
82 was
I
when you were
at
at
Los Alamos.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So 88, 89, they told you about this stuff. So this was not like...
No, they didn't. They didn't tell me about it. That's one of the things that this group came up with. The God, I keep losing my train of thought with this thing.
So this one area, this element 115 was the fuel.
Yeah, it was the fuel.
The world will forgive you for having a migraine. Can I just
It's really
say
hard to
one-
think through
I
this.
understand.
Just give me a minute.
We'll just give you more
I
booze.
just want to say one. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say one thing. You know, Bob, for the last 30 years, people have just been on the attack on Bob. You know, getting to know him, the personal effects on his life. It's really hard to understand unless you meet his family and his wife. I mean, this is the last thing he wanted to fucking do was have to talk.
Yeah, we should explain that, Jeremy, that you and I had this conversation. I watched your documentary. We had this conversation, and I said, I have to talk to him.
Yeah.
The document, there's been detractors. There's been a bunch of people that called bullshit on many of the things that you've said, but over time, many of the things that you talked about, even in the 80s, have proven to be true. Things that people said were not true were proven to be true. Element 115 was one of them, right?
Right. Element 115, the fuel they had, was stable. In other words, it didn't decay. It wasn't emitting radioactivity. When they synthesized the 2 or 3 atoms of the 115, it did decay, and it was not a stable element. So they're kind of two different things. But this is kind of typical. Elements always have, or pretty much always have, stable isotopes and unstable isotopes. Like I think cesium has like 30 unstable isotopes to it. So, all right, well, hydrogen, for example, you're familiar with hydrogen gas. It's stable. It's not radioactive. But there's also 2 other types of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium. And deuterium isn't radioactive. It's another stable isotope of hydrogen. But tritium is radioactive. Now, they're all hydrogen, but they just have different amounts of neutrons. So it's the same thing with other elements and element 115. Depending on the amount of neutrons it has, designates the isotope, but it's 115. They will continue to take or experiment and try and make 115 at different isotopes, and I'm sure eventually they'll come up with a stable version, but it's the stable version that has the properties that we're talking about.
So they somehow or another had acquired a stable version. Did they say that the stable version had come with this craft?
Yeah, it absolutely
did.
came with the craft, yeah.
So at the time, you having a firm knowledge of the periodic chart and knowing what was real and what wasn't real, what was your reaction to having this stable element 115 that wasn't even supposed to exist?
Well, everything was impossible.
Right.
I mean, down to the metal. I did get a chance to look inside the craft on only one occasion, and this was important because where the reactor sat might have been critical to how it operated, since everything operates without any interconnection, so the placement of components might be critical. So they allowed me to go inside and look at it. Again, I forgot where the hell I am.
So you're going into this craft, and what are you thinking when you're inside of it? Like, what are you seeing?
It's a very ominous feeling because there are no, first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. It's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where 2 items meet. It's a really weird looking thing. But there was almost nothing other than a small foldable hatchway that looked recognizable. Everything was really unworldly, to pick on it, a way to describe it.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how
but
tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3 foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made, for something small. But there was no, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
You're not seeing any screens.
Well, there are archways around it that are part of the superstructure, and one of the archways can become transparent. When I was in there was another group working on one of the archways, and you could call that a screen, more or less.
So through that archway, it would maintain the solidity, the solid, whatever metal it was.
Yeah.
But you could see
through it. Yeah, it just
became
became transparent. Yeah. I saw that happen once or twice before I left.
Did you ask any questions about what the fuck?
No,
that
there's
was?
no asking
There's
questions.
no asking questions.
No.
But when you watch something become transparent and you realize it's still there, but you can now see through it.
Yeah, I mean, now that's not that impressive. We do have some liquid crystal materials that are like that. They
I've seen that in
smart
bathrooms.
glass. Yeah, they call it smart glass. So this is just, and I don't know if the craft is made of, an advanced metal or a ceramic. It was cold to the touch. So, I would lean more towards a metal.
You're not allowed to ask questions.
No, they work on the buddy system, so I can only exchange ideas and talk to Barry. Now, this really interferes with science because science is based on free discussion, and ideally, you get a bunch of guys together, exchange ideas, work on problems, and that's how things move forward. But they're so over the top concerned about security, they split everything off, and everybody becomes stagnant. It just destroys any of the progress you can make, or at least makes it go so slow. I think they wind up shooting themselves in the foot.
Which is probably why they arrived at this bottleneck that they needed to get this madman with a jet-powered Honda come in and see what he could do.
I think that was an act of desperation. I think they wanted someone that thinks out of the box and let's just give this guy a try here. Because
Right.
they weren't, and they might have done this 4 more times since, up to the point in time today, assuming they're still working on this thing.
And when you see this craft and you're inside, was there any indication that there was an area that they would use to control it, to pilot it? Was there a pilot seat? There
were 3 seats. They sat around, the reactor was in the dead center of it. And then equidistant around there were 3 seats. And that's all. There was a large, they're not consoles, they're large rectangular objects, also spaced equidistant around the center. There's nothing on them, there's no buttons, there's no lights, there's
and
no
they
controls.
Look the same color, the same
Everything
thing.
is the same
it's
color.
It's just a different shape.
Right. And directly underneath them, there's 3 levels in the craft. The main level is what we're talking about. Directly under that, those are the gravity amplifiers, the big rectangular objects. Underneath them are the gravity emitters that look like, for lack of a better word, a trash can hanging on a pipe. 3 of those. And then the top layer, this is just my personal belief, I think that has to do with a navigation or their version of a computer with some planar panels, sensor panels around the craft that we would call portholes, but they're not portholes. They're just black areas. And I think that just determines its, position in space. But I physically was in the center section, and I stuck my torso in the bottom section and hung upside down so I could see how the gravity amplifiers were positioned.
What is the roughly the size of this thing?
I don't remember from being there, but after all this stuff was over, I had John Andrews, a guy from the Testers Model Corporation, and we sat down and tried to figure out from what I saw and known sizes of things, and we came up with 52 feet in diameter. And
So
I
it's
think
fairly,
that's
fairly small.
Yeah, so I think that's a reasonable guess.
Now you said there's 9 of them, and you got a brief glimpse at the other ones. How were they different?
Oh, they looked completely different. One looked like I called it Jello mold, and it looked like a classic Jello mold with the rippled sides to it. One was a very flat disc, like like a straw hat or something like that. That was sitting up on its edge, and the thin part of it it looked like a projectile had been fired through the edge of it. So I don't know if they were attempting to see if the metal could be penetrated, or if that's where the thing came from. Maybe it was shot down. But that was the only one where I saw there was, actual physical damage to it.
And that one was roughly the same size? They're all...
They were kind of too far away to tell.
And there was several teams that were working on the propulsion system, so there was different teams that were working on these different aircrafts?
I don't
You don't know.
I could only assume.
Right. Now, when you're sitting in this thing and you're looking at this otherworldly craft, your goal is to try to figure out how this thing functions. Your goal is to try to figure out how this reactor. But you would imagine they would give you more time than just one day to check that out.
Oh, it wasn't one day.
Right.
Yeah, Barry was there. I think Barry was sleeping there. I'm sure they had. Now, that isn't weird. Up at the Tonopah test range where they work on stealth fighters, you go, I think, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and you stay up there too. So it's not weird to stay up at the test site.
Right.
So, I think he pretty much, and he acted like he's been up there for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Maybe he's still there.
Yeah, who knows?
Do you have contact with this guy?
No. Oh, no. I wish I did. I kind of thought he was going to come out after I did.
Right.
And I think I took so much flack and it's so much shit for what went on. I think I wound up helping security there, and everybody became afraid of, doing or saying anything after that.
So what kind of reports did you have to give? So you're not making much progress, right? You're just trying to figure out what this thing is, and it seems impossible.
Well, we didn't personally make them. We were always – there was never a lot of information that we gained. The guy, you would call him our supervisor, his name was Dennis Mariani, and kind of a military-looking guy. And he would routinely pop in, during the day and, hey, what's going on, guys? And he would essentially relay any information, anything new we came up with. He was our go-between, where we presented him the information, then he took it to wherever they were, assembling all the data from everybody.
Now, I assume you're working normal days, like an 8-hour day?
No, it was really weird that I would be only called in on certain times and certain days, and they would be weird hours too. Most of the time was later in the evening. I can get a call at 11 o'clock at night, and they'll say, it's now 11 o'clock. By 11:45, you need to be at the McCarran terminal, and we'll let you know when we have more information.
But what did you do while you were there? If you're looking at this object, this reactor, and you can't figure out what it is or how it works, other than the fact that it works on this element that we don't even know about.
Sure. The thing was what you do with anything. If you're trying to analyze it, all you can do is perform tests. And all we did is try and come up with every kind of test we possibly could. We tested, it violated a lot of what we thought was impossible to violate. One of the first laws of thermodynamics, essentially any machine, any device that operates always makes extra heat. Nothing works at 100% efficient. Even the headphones you're wearing, anything that takes power, some of that power is going to be converted to heat, and it's just wasted. This didn't. We looked at, back then we had infrared cameras. They're different today, but back then you had to pour liquid nitrogen into the camera to cool the sensor down and get these infrared images you've seen. But it never got, no matter what the load was on the reactor, it never got above the ambient temperature, which is impossible. You're, pulling out huge amounts of power, and nothing ever gets warm. We tried measuring magnetic fields, and there was nothing there. So we started playing around with the emission from the emitters, the gravity wave itself, and saw what we could do with it and how it was focused. So we really spent all our time just trying to see what the stuff can do and what we can control.
So you were seeing what it could do, but you couldn't ever figure out how it was doing it.
No, not really. I mean, we really could only use come up with a best guess. And now I can't say we really that I could absolutely state for certainty how anything actually worked.
Now, how did you know at all how they were piloting it? Because they were doing some tests where they were having these things fly around in the sky, and this is what gets us deeper into your story.
Right. I was out there for one test. Right. In fact, I was with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, "We're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out?" Or I think he said, "Barry, why don't you come out here and bring Bob with you?" We went out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there's a person in the craft.
Yeah, there was certainly a person in there. Now, it's not a comfortable place to be in because it's small. So the guy has to be sitting on the floor in the middle, my best guess.
And this is the same specific craft that you worked on because that was the only craft that you were in.
The only one that I touched and worked on. And it quietly lifted off the ground, which was incredibly impressive to see.
Quietly or silently?
Well, quietly, because it
make some sort of a noise?
It produced a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you can hear a slight hiss sound. Now, as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue glow disappeared. So it lifted off quietly, and then it hovered silently, if you want to be specific.
Wow. So then what kind of maneuvers was it doing?
It took off, for that particular time, it took off, moved a little around to the left and right, and then sat back down. The craft itself, they communicated with it with because I saw the guy talking in a regular VHF radio to the person in the craft. And I even saw the frequency that was on the frequency counter of the communication, the transceiver there. But what's weird is he shouldn't be able to communicate with the craft with a radio. The radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that's something we talked about for a while after.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. Now, if the craft is sitting in the air and you walk underneath it and look up, you actually cannot see the craft. The light bends around it. You're bending gravity, bends light. It bends radio waves. It shouldn't be possible to communicate with a craft that has an envelope around it that's distorting all forms of energy. But they were apparently in contact with it.
Somehow or another, through some unexplained way that they didn't bother explaining to you. Mm-hmm. So this thing gets up, it just does some very simple maneuvers, left, right, goes down. And did they discuss this with you? I mean, they said they wanted you to see it.
No, they just wanted, they didn't discuss anything with me. It sat down, we looked around for a bit, and Barry said, let's go back. We went back in the lab. All we got to do was see it. Fast forward to some months later, I did have the test flight schedule of the craft. Now, they had times they had designated high performance tests, this obviously wasn't one that was a high performance test. The high performance test goes above the mountain range, and they do much more radical moves with the thing. Look, this is a prized item, and they're not doing anything like taking it out of the atmosphere or flying around to other countries or anything like
Right.
that. They just play with this thing right over the test site. But they were doing some radical moves with it. And since I had the test flight schedule, statistically, the amount of traffic in the surrounding areas on the highway was lowest on Wednesdays. And that's why Dennis told us that all the test flights occurred only on Wednesdays, because it'd be the least chance that anyone would see what's going on.
And this was before the government had expanded the forbidden territory around Area 51 and Papoose Lake and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that occurred after my story came out. Then people started going up on the mountaintops and trying to look down into there, and they kind of freaked out and then did the land grab and pushed everybody back. But yeah, I think all that occurred long after that I came out.
What do you think the UFO phenomenon is?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, that there are a lot of different varieties of it. But when we look at, like we were looking at the Francis of Assisi and the kind of historical things and the abductions and things like that, I think that it's been around for a long time, and that these are things that are in communication with us. So what I do in my book, both the books that I wrote about this, is I talk to people who I think represent thousands of people. So each person in the book represents thousands, if not more, maybe many thousands of people who have had experiences and the ways in which they interpret them. So all of the people seem to have had experiences where now what they want to do is they actually want to work for justice in different ways. Like Jose, the veteran in my book, he's working with young people and helping them deal with being addicted to social media and things like that, and helping them get through life, which is really hard right now. And that's what he's doing. And then you look at Dr. Whiteley, right? So she's working in the Space Force. She's trying to, help people deal with the fact that they're seeing things that, that could down planes and things like that. And she's helping people talk about that. She's helping people. Each person is somehow doing what I'm suggesting that I think is an out to this kind of structural injustice that we see. So I think that this is a transformational thing without the drugs, is what's going on. Like some kind of massive experience that people are having, and now it's getting out, and people are being able to talk to each other through Reddit communities and different types of social media. So it is it's we did see religions, when they become viral at one point. We've never seen it in an age where we have digital technology, but this is what we're seeing now.
What do you think the physical objects are?
Well, okay, so this is something that's very interesting. We just looked at the Shroud of Turin. I believe that there are these, I would call them, and this is just my own non-scientific term, interdimensional objects. They're objects that have characteristics of our dimension and some other dimension.
So some other dimension has the capability, or something from some other dimension has the capability of transporting a physical object into our realm.
Or even imprinting onto a physical object. Yeah.
How so?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think
What
that's
do you mean
what.
by, what does that mean, imprinting onto
So
a
with the
physical
Shroud
object?
of Turin,
Okay.
we see the imprint of the image, and
If it's real.
yeah, if it's real. But it's an anomalous object. So we do have, from Gary Nolan, engineered objects that we don't know how they're engineered, but they definitely look like they're it's off planet. I would call the kinds of things that we see in the historical record interdimensional types of things. Now, how? I don't know, Joe. Okay, so I just don't know. But I do think that scientists in the government know that these things exist, and they would like to figure it out. And so part of disclosure, the disclosure movement, is outsourcing this and trying to get as many people as possible to help in figuring it out.
What do you think when they use the term donations? What do you think the purpose of that is? If there is an object that is purposely released into our, like I'm sure you're aware of cargo cults,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So with cargo cults, for people that don't know, there's been some islands during World War I and World War II where planes landed there and they left, and these people, they created these statues of these planes and they worshiped them. And they
wanted them to come back.
Yes.
Yeah,
wanted them
because
to
they
come
got
back.
food and all
Yes.
kinds of wonderful things from the planes.
Right. And
yeah. Like they thought of them as deities.
Right. The same way we
Yeah.
would think of something from
Like
somewhere
this.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that in my field has been called the cargo cult, the UFO cargo cult, right? And obviously Tyler and James view these parts as donate. They called it the donation site, right? So giving it the idea
Is that just one theory?
yeah, that's just one theory.
Are there other theories that there's a biological organism that encounters a lightning storm and it actually crashes and there's physical bodies?
Oh yeah,
that are
there
recovered?
is that. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Going
What's your
around.
take on that? Because that's one of the things that Grush talked about and some of the other people talked about, that there are biological things that have been recovered.
Well, what impressed me about what he said was that he used the term biologics. And I actually know that term because that's the same term that Tyler was talking about when he was creating materials in anti-gravity spaces on space shuttles and such. So I was wondering, because David Grush does get his information from people allegedly in the programs, but he's never seen these materials that I know of.
I think he has some firsthand experience that he was not able to talk about.
Okay.
That he's alluding to.
Okay.
I
Right.
think, but this
Yeah.
is recent, and he's been very careful about how he releases this information and what he's able to release and not able to release. And
Right.
that I was like, okay,
Yeah,
Really?
so I mean, I've not seen any bodies, nor have I seen intact craft, but I also have had. Now, remember, I don't have a clearance like he has, so I can actually talk about what people have told me. I have had people tell me that yes, Diana, there are intact craft. I don't know. I mean, maybe. So I don't know, Joe.
have you studied Bob Lazar?
Okay, yes, I am always asked about Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I can tell you that people that I've met who are associated with the programs tell me that he's right. Now I know his background and I know, all the things. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I can also say that a lot of times people with very disturbing backgrounds, who could be easily discredited, are given information and shown things and told things.
Well, I would think that that's sort of like a little escape clause.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
I mean, the guy's obviously a genius and was obviously a propulsion expert. He put a fucking jet engine on a Honda in like the 1980s. He's a
I know.
fascinating guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And, he claims that there's some element that exists in other places in the universe, which leads me to believe, not even to believe, but so here's the question. Are some of these things from other planets? Is that also in the equation? I mean, just because something is traveling interdimensionally, we do know that there are an infinite number of planets
Yeah.
in the universe. I mean, we have no idea how many of them are capable of supporting human-like life or some other kind of life or an infinite number of varieties of life. And if that life can do what we've done and get to some part of its progression where it's capable of creating what we're calling artificial intelligence or super advanced technology, why wouldn't it come here?
Yes, I'm not discounting ET.
So that could be there too.
I think so, especially because of the ways in which the materials are being manufactured off planet, like the ones that we just saw. And that was in formation when I met Tyler 2014, and now it's a full-on thing that's happening, right? So it's a supercharged program of creating things that will help us off planet. I mean, certainly then, yeah, I think so. I mean, but I don't know.
Right.
So I have to just be honest.
So it might be a bunch of different things happening all at the same time, interdimensionally, extraterrestrially, something from a distant galaxy that's figured out some new method of propulsion that's beyond our imagination that can visit, and then also things that are coming here from other dimensions.
Yes. And even recently, somebody had, I can't say anything. I can't say I'm sorry. I don't want to be that person that goes on your show and says,
it's okay.
I can't say that.
But
I probably, most likely there are, if there's crash retrieval crash retrievals here on Earth, perhaps there are in space as well.
Do you, when they talk about inventions that emerged post-Roswell, that's one of the points of speculation, is that we have back-engineered something, and that this led to the creation of fiber optics and a lot of other technologies that seem to emerge after that time.
Yeah. So this question was prominent in my mind in 2012 when I met Jacques Vallée. So I was already aware of his work, even as a person who hadn't studied UFOs or even believed in them. Jacques Vallée is just one of these people, right, that you come across his work and he's fascinating. So I thought it was strange that not only was he a person who was, pre-engineered ARPANET, right? He was on ARPANET, which is pre-internet. He was creating that at the same time as being obsessed with UFOs and being a ufologist. These things seemed that they had to be together, right? There was something that, what's going on here? So, and I'm in touch with him often. And he says a lot of things that are rather cryptic, but sometimes I ask him specifically, was what you were doing on ARPANET related to back-engineered UFO parts? And then he'd say something like, there are many secrets in Silicon Valley, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's real cryptic. He's kind of difficult to have a conversation with publicly.
Well, it does have a lot. I guess there are lots of secrets in Silicon Valley.
Of course.
Which is where he lives.
Yeah. Another thing that was really fascinating about your book was you were talking about how much religion he studied.
Yes. That was really interesting. So in the book, what I do is I uncover not just him, but Alan Hynek. They were friends. And they were both Rosicrucians, which is a form of, he might not like me to say this, but it's a form of mystical Christianity in a sense. But a lot of Rosicrucians don't view their roots as Christian. They look at it as Egyptian. But it's an esoteric tradition, and it involves meditation. I think it most likely involves this thing that you and I have been discussing in the whole talk so far is the pineal gland thing, the access point, because both of them believe in this kind of life, this meditating and things like that. And so I included references. Everything I say in my books, by the way, I pass to the person that I'm writing the chapter about. So everything that I said about Jacques, I gave it to him beforehand, and I said, are you okay with me saying this publicly? And so it passed all the tests. And I also talk about going to his apartment and seeing his library, which is an amazing library. And he has stained glass from Chartres Cathedral. And Chartres Cathedral is a special place for Rosicrucians, like a special place of presence of the sacred. And he actually did those himself. So he learned how to do stained glass from people at Chartres, by the way. And yeah, just amazing. And he had a lot of books on angels and fallen angels in that library, like almost like it was almost like going into the Vatican archive, going into this place, because these looked like first editions or close. So, really, really old books about this topic.
Fallen angel.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked when I went. We were going to have lunch and talk about the crash site and maybe talk about, what I learned from Tyler and that kind of thing. And we went to lunch, and then he said, "Do you want to see the library?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So I saw the handwritten documents from Project Blue Book. And that was just going into the library. That wasn't actually in the library. Then when we got in there, I noticed big bookcases of these books. And of course I was drawn to them. And he said, he picked out one and he opened it and it was about angels. And he said, this is a book about angels. And I could see that. And I was looking at it. I was like, wow. And then I looked at the other bookshelf, and that bookshelf was just as impressive. And then it was about fallen angels. He said, "Oh, this one's about fallen angels." And then he made a joke. And he said, "You can't have one without the other." And I thought that was really interesting.
That does seem to align with what we're talking about, with like the struggle of good and evil.
It does. That's what he said too. And I was actually shocked at that point. I was like, wow. So just, I'm a professor of religion, so I'm like, I'm right about, my intuition was somehow confirmed.
And by the way, I think this should be, I'm not sure if this is totally true, but I believe he was the inspiration for the French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about the Air Force admitting that their pilots had seen UFOs, and you were telling me you interviewed one of those pilots.
I interviewed Commander Fravor, and he was saying that this
chocolate is be my favorite. Come on.
It's with an R, Fravor.
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 Okay.
He was he was one of the guys that actually went to what is the word they do when they scramble and go to try to figure out what the fuck something is. But they monitored this thing. They saw it with their eyes. They saw it with their equipment. It was actively jamming their radar, whatever this thing was. It was shaped like a Tic Tac, and it moved so fast you couldn't track it with the human eye. They said it went from, I think they said some impossible number, like 60,000 feet down to 200 feet in less than a second. Like whatever you could track. A radar does a blip, 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 blip. They don't know how fast it actually went. They just know it went this insane distance in less than a second, less than a radar jump. They had observed them in that area without his knowledge, like other Air Force pilots had observed them and then had, brought it up to the top of the food chain, but it wasn't something that got distributed to everybody until he saw it. When he saw it, he was like, "What in the fuck am I looking at here?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, we've been seeing these things." And this thing with no active propulsion system that you could recognize. There was nothing around, no fire coming out of it, nothing around. And it would just disappear, just take off at an insane race of speed and actively jamming their radar.
So when I covered this on my show, I said, now, I've heard reports that pilots see this stuff all the time, but they never confirmed it. And my question was, why now? Why would the Air Force be confirming that they saw UFOs now? Because again, like there have been reports that pilots have seen this stuff forever. And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying, why are they admitting it happened now? And then, of course, you see in this last defense budget, they put in money for a Space Force.
I think the money for the Space Force, though, isn't that because China is able to...
That's what they say.
Yeah,
whatever they can do to make sure we want to spend more money, that's what they'll do. Hey, we saw a UFO. Hey, China. Hey, look over there. We got to spend more money.
That's what it is? That's why they're admitting
Yes.
it? But Fravor, I guarantee you, isn't in that.
No, I guarantee he saw it. No, they're just now. But before, they would say that's not true. The Air Force would go, we don't acknowledge that. And now they're going to acknowledge it.
Right. You're probably right. There's probably something to that it's just about budgets. And that's I don't want to be that cynical when it comes to something like that.
Really? That's cynical?
Yeah. I want to think that...
Come on, that's not cynical. That's 2 plus 2.
It is, you're right. But
Okay.
it's also cynical that the only reason why they're telling us is because of budgets. It's both things.
Yeah, okay.
It is 2 plus... I mean, look, it's 100% is how they do it. If they need some sort of justification for expanding their reach or expanding their budget, they come up with some threats. Yeah.
I'm close. I'm in the dumb...
I'm pretty dumb.
There's gaps in my knowledge that I can believe.
Oh, yeah, and well, neither of us are going to figure anything out, right? We're not that guy that they're going to call on. If there's a real issue, we need Jimmy Dore.
That's the thing, Joe. About my whole show is that someone as dumb as me can see through this
Yes,
stuff. I can put it together. Oh, we're going to admit that we have UFOs, and now we're going to have a space bar. Okay, I can put that together. That's the whole thing. It's like, if I can do this, I know they can do this. They're just not doing it.
I think the UFO thing is, I know you're probably right in terms of like one of the reasons why they released it, but I think there's also this. When you get a bunch of like really credible people like that Commander Fravor guy, when you get actual data like radar, you actually can look at the video of the infrared camera of them tracking that thing. There's enough of those now that people are like, well, what the fuck is going on? And if you guys have all this money and all this equipment, is this something that the Chinese are doing or the Russians are doing, or is this something that you can't explain? And I think we're in this area where there's so much information. People can get a hold of so many videos and so much stuff that they kind of have to start talking about it now.
Okay. I see how they shut down conversations around the most innocuous of inquiries. So
that's true too.
They can say shame pretty hard.
Yeah. That's true too. But when you got a guy who's like a decorated pilot like Fravor, and he's like, look, I don't have any other crazy stories in my past. Like, he's not a crazy guy. He's a pretty rock solid, general, all around American hero type guy. And he's like, look, I'll tell you what I fucking saw, and it's pretty crazy.